Hey, what's up, nerds? It is Paul at Radio Free Hammer Hall, and I just got back. It's Wednesday, so it was actually a couple of days ago that I just got back from the Boyz 2023, and I actually came up with a winning record at a competitive GT for the first time since, I don't know, maybe 2019. It's been a bit. I've had a bit of a run of, I'm not going to say bad luck. I'm just going to say poor decisions and sucking in general. But I put up a 3-2 and yeah, I mean, I did really well. There was 80 players. I got in battle, I believe I got 36th out of 80. And then 13th in hobby score, and then 27th, I think, overall. So really happy with the showing in general. I think though, I think it was 65th in sportsmanship. And we're going to talk about why that was, because I believe that had all to do with the list and not my sparkling personality. Because I had a good time. I don't know. I think this list is just not friendly. It's NPE town. So as you can see, this is a list that I brought. I played Maggotkin. I really like this list personally from just a perspective of me playing it, but I don't know if this is actually the the most friendly list ever. So let's run down. My general was a Lord of Afflictions. He had the Overpowering Stench, which shuts off command abilities within 7 inches of him. Slightly more complicated than that, but we don't need to go into detail. Split Horn Helm that boosts his ward to 4+. And a Sloppy Bile Piper with a Wither Stave. The Glotkin, his spell was Rancid Visitations. Blow Brat spawned with the spell Magnificent Buboes. Then 4 Beasts of Nurgle, 2 units of Rotmire Creed, and Geminids of Ulyish. Brought me up to 1990 and took a Warlord Battalion and a Battle Regiment. So it was 5 drops. I outdropped my opponents pretty frequently, actually, which I thought was pretty interesting. A lot of folks going kind of high drops in this event, or at least my opponents were. So let's now go over to what does this list actually do? This is a very Johnny list in terms of how it plays on the tabletop. This is, your big piece is your Glotkin, and you're using Blightcreeg to maximum effect. What Blightcreeg does, for those that are unaware or need a reminder, it lets you make a charge at the end of the enemy movement phase with the Glotkin and 1 other unit. So the tricky part about this is that the Glotkin is a War Master, so his command ability range is 18 inches. And the requirement is that the Glotkin and the other unit receiving the command both have to be within 12 inches of an enemy unit, not the same enemy unit, any enemy unit. So if you run Glotkin up the middle of the field, you really are casting this huge net across the battlefield of area denial, where if your opponent comes in, you kind of get to pick your charges on their turn, which is really painful for your opponent. This really disrupts their plans a lot. It's a thing that your opponent will just endlessly walk into. I denied a battle tactic on my opponent in an average of at least once a game, with this specifically. Just opponent went to do some battle tactic that involved charging, and I Blight Krieg in the enemy movement phase and just got their unit that they wanted to charge with in combat before their charge phase, so they couldn't charge with them. Battle tactic denied. And like, the NPE there is, I don't like to be a gotcha player, but this is just an inherently gotcha ability. I'm going to remind my opponent about this. I'm going to tell them about it, explain how the ability works. But if you just walk into this, I'm not going to just remind you, because like, this is my whole game plan, is letting you walk into this. And at some point, you're going to have to make these conscious decisions to just walk up and deal with it. So I just remind you every time I'm anywhere near it. After that, Sloppity Bile Piper and the Beasts of Nurgle. The beasts can run in charge and retreat in charge, which is just really huge. They do mortal wounds when they complete charges. They, in combination with Sloppity Bile Piper, they're really good at preventing pile-ins with, my love is like a ripe fart. You run them in and you tag the corner of an enemy unit, and now it can't go anywhere. Particularly coupling with this with Blight Krieg, it really, really screws with your opponent a lot. This is an NPE thing. You're pitting the enemy units. You're preventing their pile-ins. You're really controlling zones with this. Like, you're being just supremely annoying and challenging to your opponent. And, the point with these guys is not to kill things. They don't really do a lot of damage. The point is get them in combat, prevent your opponent's units from doing stuff, prevent your opponent from executing on their game plan, because they're in combat. Now, unless they've got retreat and charge abilities, then they're probably in trouble, because you're getting in their way a lot. And they're going to have trouble killing it out, because it's an 8 wound guy with a 5-up save and a 5-up ward. And it's going to be healing every turn. And if it's near Glockkin, it's going to be healing D3 every turn. So it's going to be, it's just, they're sticky. They're not getting a lot of damage thrown on them because of Sloppity Bile Piper preventing the pile-ins if you're positioning the way you want to. And, if your opponent also positions improperly or gives you opportunities with this, you can swing in and get, in combat, complete your charge into one unit and stop the pile-ins there, but then be within 3 inches of a couple of other units. Now it's preventing them from piling in too and blocking them out. In game 5, I did that to Bastion Carthalos and whatever the other guy is, the other good hero in Stormcast that does stuff. I'm blanking on names right now, but it's just debilitating when your opponent's not thinking about that clearly and planning ahead. Lord of Afflictions, my standard game plan with this, almost every game, I did this all 5 rounds. He goes up in the sky. He deploys in reserve, and then he can drop down anywhere in the battlefield outside of 9 inches from the opponent. in any of my movement phases. Very frequently, your opponent forgets he's even there, and you just drop him down and steal an objective, or control a zone to prevent them from doing something, or you can use it as a locus for summoning, or he just gets in the way. I prevented my opponent from completing or from getting positioning on objectives by just dropping him down and getting a lucky charge and pinning him. So those sorts of things is, you know, what he's there for. He's a great utility piece. And by throwing the split horn helm on him, just makes him even more durable. He already has a 3-up armor save on his own and 8 wounds. So just boosting that ward to 4+ just makes him even more tanky. Rotmeyer Creed. These guys are like all-stars, and they're great on their own. They don't really need to synergize with anything else, but they still do synergize well with things. The Glotkin's spell, Abundance of Flesh, increases the wounds characteristic of them by 1 until your next hero phase. So they basically become plague bearers until your next hero phase. But plague bearers that can fight. So their shooting attack really spreads around a lot of disease. It doesn't do a ton of damage on its own, but it really does harass enemy units quite a bit. And you know, just being able to unleash hell once in a while when you know, whenever your opponent is, when you have an extra command pool, when you are in a position where you just want to throw a little extra disease on something, they're also just 10 bodies to throw on an objective when, you know, otherwise this list is very short on bodies. Everything else is just single models except for them. So they're just a solid piece. They just did what they were meant to do in every game. They hold objectives really well. They can chaff things up. They can they spread disease really, really effectively. And I just really love these guys. Blow Brought Spawn. I really didn't have a very big game plan with him. I should have had a better game plan and done something different. He's definitely the thing that I would change in this list. I'll talk about that a little bit in a couple minutes, but you know, he ended up being mostly there to you know, be more combat, be more damage dealing. So his effectiveness in combat is not as good as the other Magath lords. And the things that make his points higher, like him being a wizard and having that -1 to hit ability, it just wasn't really working out. So I think using a different piece for that is going to be much better, more reliable. Things that you don't have to roll dice to worry about. Okay, so just a little bit talking more about the results. Blightcreek and Sloppity Bile Piper just really make your opponent feel bad. And I don't know how to really explain them other than that. They're very powerful, but they are not fun or friendly abilities, which I think is why I had a pretty crappy sportsmanship score. You know, Lord of Afflictions is a really solid piece. He does his job. He disrupts. He's worth his points. He doesn't need to really synergize with anything else too much. He does his job. Rotmeyer Creed, same deal. I would not like, they're pointed great. I think they're solid at 150. I don't think they need to change. I think pretty much everything in Maggotkin right now, I feel like, is just about where it should be points wise. It all seems pretty fair. I think there's problems with a lot of players just not understanding how to play around Sloppity Bile Piper and Blightcreek. And I think if I was in tougher matchups, against more seasoned players that had run up against this more, I think they would be able to deal with this with much fewer problems, and I would have struggled more. But as it was, you know, you just deny battle tactics that seem like they should be easy, and do unexpected things to your opponent and deny them combats that seem like they should be easy. I never really used the Geminids. I think I cast them once into Bone Reaper's Null Myriad, which did absolutely nothing. So, yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, I like this list, but there's some tweaks that I want to make. Here is one possible version that I am looking at. So cutting the Geminids and cutting Blow Broadspawn and cutting one Beast of Nurgle just for point's sake, and then slotting in a Great Unclean one. Make the Great Unclean one my general, so now I get a second Feculent Gnarlmaw in Befouling Host. Give him the Nurgling Infestation, Vial of Manticore, Venom, Flaming Weapon, Sword and Flail, my standard fighty Great Unclean one build. Changing up the Glotkin spell to Blades of Putrefaction, I think, the spells that I was running really were not that effective. And I was finding with this particular build that I wasn't really maxing out disease a lot. So being able to throw Blades of Putrefaction on Rotmire Creed, I think would be really good. And Lord of Affliction still hanging out with the Splithorn Helm. This is going to get me down to 4 drops because I got switching over to Command Entourage and a Battle Regiment. So this is also going to let Sloppity Bile Piper interact with the Great Unclean one. So yeah, I think this is basically like universal shenanigans in the list. And I don't know. It's interesting, certainly. There is a second option that I was thinking of. And it looks a little bit like this. Doing something slightly weird and going Orgots and Horticulus Slimux, and then ditching the Sloppity Bile Piper because I'm running Horticulus. Horticulus becomes my general, again, so that I have a demon general. I don't really need any of the command traits that badly, so I can really just make the sacrifice to get that extra Feculent Gnarlmaw. Horticulus will give me the 3rd Feculent Gnarlmaw, so I will, in most games, be able to get the 7 contagion points on the first turn to just summon a Sloppity Bile Piper in right away anyway. And again, 3 beasts and 2 Rotmire Creed. Had some extra points, so I threw in Emerald Life Swarm. I think extra healing is probably going to be more effective than the variety of other things that I might have in here. Now, for those that were looking carefully, I also changed the Triumph on the last 2 lists to Bloodthirsty. And Horticulus has an interesting other ability here. He gives your Beasts of Nurgle +1 to hit, and he also lets them re-roll failed charges. Bloodthirsty also lets you re-roll charges for your Triumph. Now, the thing about that is that does not specify that they have to be in the charge phase. So that will let you re-roll your Blightcreed charges, which is also quite mean. I don't hate that. I didn't fail too many Blightcreed charges, but it's definitely worth it. One of the other things too that I wanted to mention about Blightcreed is that it gets you around Unleash Hell. your opponent just doesn't get to do that. And because, again, Unleash Hell is tied to the charge phase, it's not a charge response. So your opponent just can't do it. So it's that was one of the things I was playing against Caradron Overlords, and I really just stuffed a lot of their shooting by simply, if I was charging on my turn, I charge in with a Beast of Nurgle first. It's like, okay, I'm going to charge in with the Beast. If you unleash Hell, you're unleashing Hell on basically trash. Or you don't unleash Hell and you just let him get in there, and now you have to shoot a Beast of Nurgle in your shooting phase. And oh, look, you're going to get hit with Glotkin or Blowab, like coming in to do actual damage to you. So that was certainly a problem for him. Yeah, I think either of these are really solid builds, and being able to have that triumph in your pocket sometimes is certainly worth it. And Horticulus just giving you that +1 to hit always is really good. I found too that just having 4 Beasts of Nurgle was usually like excessive. You didn't really need 4 of them. You're just kind of everywhere you want to be with the Glotkin all the time. Your stuff doesn't really die that much. But with the previous build, running a Great Unclean one, those guys are so tanky. It gives you a lot of opportunity to also heal your guys because they're a locus of fecundity, and here I believe Horticulus is as well. This is just very resilient. It heals a lot. Sloppity Bile Pipers preventing pile-ins. Glotkin is charging on your opponent's turn and screwing them up. So it's it's mean. It's fun for you. It really plays into my personal play style. There's some things that this is going to be bad against. You're going to have trouble with very elite lists that are like low model count. Particularly something like Sons of Bahamut, like they don't care about not piling into you. So your Sloppity Bile Piper is kind of useless, and feeding them Beasts of Nurgle is not going to do them a lot of good. The only thing that I can really think is that you're going to be able to use the Glotkin's Blightcreeg just to control their movement a little bit. But that's going to be about it. It's going to be a really tough matchup because you're only going to have the Glotkin and then whatever your secondary monster piece is for really clearing things out. Like that's how you kill stuff. Your Beasts of Nurgle are really not there for killing things, and neither are your Rotmire Creed. So in the list I actually ran, it was the Glotkin and Blowab doing all the work. And if you ended up losing stuff, if you lost those 2 pieces, it was like, okay, we're playing defense the rest of this game, and we're going to be tricky and do weird stuff to try and win. And you end up pulling it out in the end, but it's tricky. So this is I like this a lot, and I'm going to be playing probably some version of this for a little bit until my Cities of Sigmar is ready to hit the table, which is definitely still in process. I mean, it's going to take a little bit for that to actually hit the table. But in the meantime, I'm digging this. It's cool. It's fun. I'm not sure which version I'm actually going to play. I've got Golden Sprue GT coming up in like 2 months. I'm probably not going to have a lot of opportunity to test stuff before then because life's complicated. And then, after that, I'll have a couple of months of I can't do pretty much anything, including hobby much, because once again, life's complicated. And yeah, so, well, I think I'm going to call that it for now, guys. Any other questions, comments, feel free to leave them below. And I will talk to you all later. And we out.